Tuesday mornings were my sanctuary, the one time of the week when the world seemed to move just a little slower, as if it respected my need for peace. I sat at the small round table by the kitchen window, sipping coffee and reviewing purchase orders for my furniture workshops. The early light poured into the house, with the soft gold only Atlanta summers knew how to give. For a moment, it felt like life was steady, predictable, earned. I was halfway through a shipment invoice when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I would have let it ring out. Every scammer in the city seemed to know my name these days. But something about the timing, about the stillness of the morning, made me answer. Mr. Ellington. The voice trembled. This is Lillian Shore. I photographed Ariana's wedding last month. I straightened slowly, my hand tightening around the mug. Yes, Lillian. Is everything all right? There was a long silence. When she finally spoke again, her voice dropped to a whisper. I need you to come to my studio, today, if possible. And please, please come alone. Do not tell your daughter. My chest tightened. What are you talking about? What happened? I cannot explain it over the phone, but I found something in the photographs. Something serious. Very serious. The words made the air feel thinner, like someone had opened a door to a room I never wanted to enter. Lillian, what did you find? Please trust me. Come at 9 tomorrow morning. My studio downtown. I will show you everything then. She hung up before I could respond. I sat frozen in place, the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the steam rising from my coffee. Ariana's wedding had been one of the proudest days of my life. A beautiful ceremony at Lakewood Chapel, the reception filled with glowing lights, soft jazz, and the faces of people I had known for decades. She had looked radiant, happy, like the world had finally aligned for her. Something serious. A sudden metallic bang shattered the quiet. The kitchen cabinet slammed open and shut. Marcus. Derek's voice boomed from the refrigerator door. We are out of almond milk again. I told you yesterday. I turned and saw him standing there, shirtless, tattoos across his chest, yawning like a man who had been up all night. He always slept late. At 28, he claimed he was still trying to find direction. Somehow that meant living in my house rent-free with his girlfriend Kyra. 4 years now. 4 long years. You can drink what is there, I said, trying to steady my voice. He rolled his eyes. Kyra needs almond milk. Her stomach gets messed up without it. You know that. Kyra's footsteps padded down the stairs. She walked into the kitchen, scrolling on her phone, barely glancing at me. Morning, Marcus. She stretched dramatically. By the way, we need gas money. Derek's car is almost on empty. Can you transfer it before noon? I turned back to my laptop. Later. She repeated the word like it offended her. Later? We need it by noon. I have a study meetup at 1. I did not respond. Derek sighed loudly. He always sighed loudly when he did not get his way. Fine. I guess we will handle it ourselves. But it would help if you were more present around here. We cannot handle everything. Everything. They did not handle anything. They finally drifted into the living room, where the television clicked on immediately. Bass rattled the floorboards. My kitchen, my house, my peace, slowly drowned. I tried to return my focus to the numbers on my laptop, but everything blurred. My daughter's wedding, the enormous bill I had covered, the way she had hugged me that night and whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." The way her new husband, Damian Holt, had shaken my hand with perfect politeness, the glow in Ariana's eyes when they danced. Something serious. The words twisted in my mind like a knot pulled tight. At 6:30 that evening, my front door opened without a knock. Ariana stepped inside, heels clicking against the wood floors, her tailored suit crisp and immaculate from a long workday as a financial analyst. She kissed my cheek. Hi, Dad. I was nearby and thought I would stop in. She settled onto the couch, smiling as if nothing in our world could ever be wrong. I looked at her, trying to see if there was a shadow I had missed, a hint of something beneath her smile. But I saw nothing except the daughter I loved, and the echo of Lillian's trembling voice. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, something very serious. A quiet dread settled into my bones, the kind that did not leave. The next morning, I left my house before Derek and Kyra woke up. I did not want questions or comments, or their careless footsteps echoing behind me. Downtown Atlanta was already alive, sunlight cutting through high-rises as I drove toward the Arts District. Lillian Shore's studio sat inside a renovated brick warehouse, its windows tall and dusted with years of southern heat. I parked across the street and sat in my truck for a moment, trying to quiet the churn inside my chest. A part of me hoped Lillian had been mistaken, that whatever she found was trivial. A lens reflection, a shadow, anything harmless. But deep down, something inside me already knew better. When I walked inside, the studio smelled faintly of coffee and printing ink. Professional portraits lined the walls, families smiling, brides glowing, grooms straightening ties, moments frozen in time. Lillian emerged from a side room. She looked smaller than I remembered, her hair pinned in a simple twist, her hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Ellington, thank you for coming." I nodded. "Just show me, please." She locked the studio door behind us. That sound alone made my spine tighten. "This way." We walked through a narrow hall into her editing suite. A single large monitor lit the dim room. Folders and digital equipment were arranged meticulously. She gestured to the chair, but I remained standing. Her voice softened. "Before I show you anything, I need you to know, I did not go looking for this. I found it by accident while reviewing lighting tests." A pulse hammered in my throat. "Please, Lillian, now." She pressed a key. The screen filled with photos of Ariana's wedding, the ceremony, the vows, the tears sliding down Ariana's cheek as she read her promise to Damien. I felt my breath catch. "These are the images everyone saw," she said gently. Then she clicked into another folder labeled Pre-Ceremony Terrace. "This is where it changes." The next image appeared. At first, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. A terrace, late afternoon sun, and Damien, my son-in-law, in his tuxedo shirt, collar open, tie hanging loose. His hands cupped the face of a woman with silver-dyed hair. Not Ariana, not anyone I recognized. Their lips were locked, intimate, familiar, a kiss that had history behind it. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. The image sharpened, her arms wrapped around his shoulders, her left hand visible, a gold ring, and a diamond. She was married. My voice broke. "When was this taken?" 2 hours before the ceremony. She opened the metadata file. Date, time, GPS coordinates, everything confirmed. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay upright. "Are you absolutely certain?" She nodded. "There are more." She clicked forward, Damien whispering in the woman's ear, her smiling, his hand sliding along her waist. Another kiss, another angle, each frame more damning than the last. The truth felt like a blade pressed against my ribs. My daughter, she had been getting her hair done, laughing, excited, preparing for the biggest moment of her life while her husband-to-be was outside kissing someone else, someone who wore a ring of her own. Lillian reached into her desk drawer. I made a copy of everything. Metadata, timestamps, original files. "This flash drive contains the full set." She placed the drive in my palm. It felt heavier than it should, like holding the weight of a life I no longer recognized. I whispered, "Why would he marry her, if he was doing this?" Her eyes were full of apology. "I do not know, but there is something else." My stomach tightened. "What?" She hesitated. "I found one frame where the silver-haired woman is holding something behind his back. A phone. The screen shows a banking app login page, and Damien is leaning toward it, as if giving her information." My heart dropped. "I did not include it in the main set yet. I thought you should see the kissing photos first. If you want the others, I can prepare them." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the computer. The betrayal was no longer a betrayal. It was a pattern, a strategy, something planned. "Please send everything," I said. "Every file, every detail." "Of course." I straightened, though my legs felt weak. "Thank you, Lillian. You did the right thing." When I walked out of her studio, the sunlight outside seemed harsh and violent, as if the world had changed brightness against my will. I got into my truck, closed the door, and let out a breath that felt like it had been locked inside me for years. 2 hours before the wedding, a secret woman with a wedding ring of her own, financial information on a phone screen, and Ariana, my daughter, completely oblivious. I turned the key in the ignition, gripping the steering wheel as the truth began to form a shape I did not want to see. "Something serious," Lillian had said. She had not been wrong. The drive home felt endless. Atlanta's streets, usually familiar and grounding, blurred into indistinct shapes as my mind raced. I could still see Damien's hands tangled in that woman's silver hair, the casual confidence in his touch, the way her wedding ring flashed in the sunlight, and worse, that banking app glowing on her phone screen. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I no longer felt like the man who had left that morning. Something inside me had split open. Inside, the house was quiet for once. I walked straight to my office, shut the door, and powered on my laptop. Numbers had always made sense to me. They were steady, predictable, honest. If Damien had used Ariana for money, the trail would be somewhere in the numbers. I opened the wedding spreadsheet. The painful irony of it hit me. I had created the spreadsheet myself, excited to help Ariana start married life without worry. $65,000 in expenses. I had covered every cent. Then the wedding gifts. I had thought the pile of envelopes meant love, generosity, goodwill toward the newlyweds. I remembered the way Ariana had laughed when she told me how blessed she and Damien were. Blessed. But looking at the numbers now, I saw something else. 17 envelopes contained checks. 43 had cash. The total, just over $70,000. All of it had been deposited into a joint account, an account I did not know existed until yesterday's conversation with the bank manager. They had opened it only 2 months before the wedding, and Damien had been perfectly calm when accepting checks, calm in a way that suddenly made sense. He knew exactly how much they would collect. He had planned for it. A chill crept across my skin. I leaned back in my chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. I tried to remember anything at all that might have hinted at Ariana being unhappy or suspicious, but nothing came. She had been radiant. That glow had not been fake. She had truly believed in the man standing at the altar. The same man kissing another woman 2 hours earlier. I pushed away from the desk and walked to the window. The Georgia evening was settling outside, cicadas humming softly. Every part of life continued as if mine hadn't just cracked. I needed air. I stepped into the hallway. That was when I heard it. Derek's voice upstairs. Too loud, as usual. He was on speakerphone. He always forgot to lower the volume. "Yeah, Ariana," he said. "Dad is acting strange. Suspicious. He's been in his office all night." My chest tightened. Then Ariana's voice came through the speaker, bright and unbothered. "It doesn't matter. Damien and I only need 90 more days. After that, the law kicks in. Half the wedding gifts are legally mine. Split right down the middle." I froze. Derek laughed. "So, the plan's still happening?" "Of course it is," Ariana said. "Damien already spoke with that woman. She's cool with how long this has to last. She knows what she's getting out of it." "That woman. The one with silver hair. The one wearing a ring." Derek snorted. "Man, that's cold. Dad has no idea he paid for the whole setup." Setup. The word slammed into my spine. Ariana continued, her voice cheerful, as if discussing weekend plans rather than betrayal. "Once I file for divorce, Damien and I agreed on a 60-40 split, and the best part? Dad will never know. He's too busy playing hero." Derek's laugh echoed down the staircase. "We're thinking the same thing about the condo. Kyra and I can stretch our stay a few more months. Dad hates conflict. He'll give us money just to get peace." "So keep pushing the car idea?" Derek asked. "Yes," Ariana said. "If you make a big enough demand, Dad will be softened up. Then my request won't look so outrageous." Softened up, like I was some tool to be shaped. Kyra's voice chimed in faintly. "And if he resists?" Ariana exhaled loudly. "Then guilt. Always works. Or tears. Mom used to do that with him, all the time." The breath left my lungs. My knees nearly gave out. I stepped backward, slowly, carefully, until I reached the shadow of my office doorway. My fingers shook. My daughter had not just been planning to divorce her husband. She had not just known about the affair. She had orchestrated the entire marriage as a financial extraction. And Derek, my own son, was helping her. The house suddenly felt unrecognizable. My family felt unrecognizable. I returned to my desk, sat down, forced air into my lungs. The betrayal was larger than I could process. deeper than a single moment. It stretched years back. Ariana, Derek, Kira, Damien, the woman with the silver hair. They were all connected. And I, blind, trusting, proud, had funded the entire machine. I looked at my hands. They felt like someone else's. Something inside me hardened. A decision forming. Quiet. Heavy. Inevitable. Tomorrow, I would not be the man they thought I was. I barely slept that night. The house creaked the way old houses do, but the sounds felt different, heavier, as if the walls themselves had absorbed what I overheard and were grieving with me. When dawn finally broke, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, eyes gritty, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, gone cold long ago. I had raised 2 children in this house. I had watched Ariana take her first steps down this hallway. I had taught Derek how to fix a leaky faucet in the garage. This house had heard laughter, arguments, Christmas mornings, teenage tantrums, first dates announced with excitement, heartbreaks whispered through closed doors. Now it felt like a crime scene. By 9:45, I was parking outside the downtown office of attorney Jared Colton. His name had come recommended by a business acquaintance who once described him as the kind of lawyer who could untangle a viper's nest without getting bit. Exactly what I needed. The building was all glass and steel, reflecting the bright Atlanta sun. I stepped into a lobby that smelled faintly of leather and cedar polish, then took the elevator up to the 15th floor. A receptionist guided me to Jared's office. He stood when I entered, mid-50s, tall, with a calm face that suggested nothing ever surprised him. His handshake was firm. "Mr. Ellington, please have a seat." I lowered myself into a chair opposite his desk. He glanced at the folder I was gripping too tightly. "You noted family property concerns on the intake form. Why don't you start from the beginning?" I placed the folder on the desk, took a breath, and for the next 15 minutes, I told him everything. Damien's affair, the silver-haired woman, the banking app, the wedding money, the overheard conversation between Ariana and Derek, their plan to stretch out their stay and manipulate me for a condo, Ariana's planned divorce, the $70,000 in gifts ready to be split like winnings from a heist. Jared listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against a legal pad. "That is quite a situation." That was an understatement. "Let's start with your house," he continued. "Do Derek and his girlfriend pay rent?" "No." "Do they have a written lease?" "No." "Then you are in a fortunate legal position. Under Georgia property law, without a lease, they are guests. Guests who can be removed with a formal 30-day notice." "Just like that?" "Just like that. The notice is a courtesy, not a negotiation." Something loosened in my chest. Not relief, something harder. Something like clarity. "What about everything else? My business, my savings, retirement. I do not want my children to have access to any of it." "Then you need an irrevocable trust. It is one of the strongest legal structures available. You transfer your assets into the trust and designate a trustee. You still control everything while you are alive, but after your death, the distribution is locked. Your children cannot contest it easily." I stared at him. "Even if they try?" He nodded. "The burden of proof is extremely high. A trust created while the grantor is competent is almost impossible to break. And given what you just told me, I will structure the documents with every safeguard available." A thought drifted through my mind. My father had left his estate in a simple will. I had never questioned that. But times were different now. People were different. My children, my own children, were different. "I cannot let them continue this," I said quietly. "They have been taking from me for years. I did not want to see it, but now I do." "What you are describing," Jared said, "is not uncommon. When a parent is dependable and financially stable, children sometimes begin to see that stability as an entitlement. The unfortunate truth is that boundaries are the only antidote." Boundaries. A foreign word, yet strangely comforting. "What do you need from me to start?" Jared opened a drawer and pulled out a thick packet, an engagement agreement. His tone was steady. "My fee for eviction notices, trust creation, and asset restructuring is $8,500. I will begin today. You will have the eviction notices by Friday. The trust will be completed in 2 to 3 weeks." I signed the agreement. My hand did not shake. Jared added one final note. Once you serve those notices, everything changes. Your relationship with your children may not recover. I stood. I know. But the relationship we have now is not one worth saving. He nodded once. A small gesture. But one filled with understanding. As I walked out of his office and stepped into the sunlit hallway, one truth echoed through my mind. I was no longer the man my children believed they could manipulate. That version of me was gone. Friday evening arrived heavy with humidity, the kind that clung to the skin and made the air feel swollen. I stood in the hallway outside the living room, the 2 sealed envelopes in my hand. The eviction notices. Legally drafted, notarized, airtight. I held them the way a surgeon might hold a scalpel before making an incision that could not be undone. Derek and Kyra were on the couch, half watching a reality show, half scrolling their phones, feet on my coffee table, empty cups littering the floor. They hardly noticed me standing there. I stepped forward and placed the envelopes on the table between them. Derek frowned. "What's this?" "Eviction notices," I said. "You both have 30 days to leave my home." Kira's jaw dropped. Her phone slipped from her hand and thudded softly onto the carpet. Derek snatched his envelope and tore it open. "Are you out of your mind?" he shouted. "What the hell is this, Dad?" "Exactly what it says." Kyra ripped open hers, her face drained of color. "You can't do this. You invited us to stay." "Temporarily. 4 years ago." Derek bolted up from the couch, chest puffed out, stepping into my space. "You're really gonna throw your own son onto the street? You're heartless." I didn't flinch. "No, I'm giving you 30 days to find your own place. You're adults." Kyra burst into manufactured tears. "We don't have money. We're trying. You know that." I looked at her, expression flat. "I don't." Derek shoved a hand through his hair. "This is insane. Ariana will lose her mind when she hears about this." "Yes," I said. "She will." He stared at me, waiting for guilt. None came. The next morning, Ariana's text arrived before sunrise. "I'm coming over today. We need to talk. Damien is coming too." Talk. I already knew what that meant. They arrived at 6 in the evening, carrying grocery bags like they were staging an act of grace. Ariana swept into the kitchen, confident as ever. "Dad, we're cooking tonight. You've clearly been stressed. We want to help." Damien set down a bag of vegetables, smiling his polished smile. "Marcus, your daughter insists you need a good family meal." I watched them move through my kitchen as if they owned it. The way Ariana adjusted my spice rack without asking. The way Damien opened my refrigerator like he had lived here for years. Kyra came downstairs wearing full makeup, as if preparing for a photo shoot. Derek hovered behind her, arms crossed, waiting for the right moment to strike. We sat at the dining table, plates arranged neatly, as if order at the table could hide the chaos underneath. Ariana folded her napkin precisely. "Dad, we've all been worried. Derek said you've been distant, irritable." I didn't respond. Damien leaned forward, expression soft, calculated. "We think maybe the house is too much for you. It's big, Marcus, a lot to take care of. A condo might make more sense." Ariana nodded. "Then you could use the money from the sale to help all of us stabilize." There it was. The real purpose of dinner. Kyra chimed in, voice fragile. "We don't want to lose our family. We just want to build something together." Derek added, "Dad, don't you want us all on solid ground?" I set my fork down slowly. My voice was steady. "You want me to sell my home so all of you can access the proceeds?" Ariana's smile tightened. "That's an unfair way to phrase it." I stood, walked to the sideboard, picked up the manila folder I had placed there hours earlier, returned to the table, and set it down in front of them. "Before we continue," I said quietly, "I want you all to see something." Ariana frowned as she opened the folder. The first photo stared back at her. Damien kissing the silver-haired woman. Timestamp bottom corner. Her breath snapped. Damien reached for the folder, too late. The second photo revealed more. The third, undeniable. Kyra gasped. Derek muttered a curse. Ariana's voice trembled. Where did you get these?" I ignored the question. "I overheard your conversation, Ariana. 90 days of marriage. Then a divorce. A 60-40 split of the wedding gifts." Her face hardened into something sharp. "Damien, Looked like he wanted to run. I continued. You all came here tonight to pressure me into selling my home. But I've already taken steps. My assets are being transferred into an irrevocable trust. You will not touch anything. Now or later. Kira went pale. Derek slammed his palms on the table. Are you serious? After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I repeated softly. You mean using me? Ariana's composure shattered. You're ruining this family. No, I said. I'm saving myself from it. I walked away, leaving them speechless at the table, the photos between them like shards of broken glass. The next morning, the house felt like a battlefield after the soldiers had fled. The dining room still smelled faintly of roasted chicken, but the air vibrated with something darker. I walked through the silence slowly, half expecting Ariana to burst back through the door demanding another explanation that she believed she deserved. But the house remained still. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and listened. At first, there was nothing. Then, the upstairs floorboards groaned. Kyra's exaggerated sobs drifted through the hallway. I checked the calendar. Day 1 of 30. For the next week, the house became a rotating stage of manipulation. Kyra discovered a new illness every morning. One day her chest hurt, the next her stomach. Another morning she claimed she could not walk. Each performance followed the same script. Tears, dramatic gasps, the faint suggestion that stress from the eviction might be killing her. Each time, I simply replied, there is cold medicine in the cabinet. By day 3, Derek shifted from anger to bargaining. He cornered me in the garage. Dad, look, I know things got messy, but we're family. We're supposed to help each other. We can start paying rent, a little at a time. I kept my voice neutral. You have 27 days left. He stared at me like I had spoken in another language. 27? His voice cracked, the disbelief almost comical. Yes, 27. That evening, I found my office door slightly ajar. I never left it that way. Inside, the trust documents sat exactly where I'd placed them the night before, except the top page was flipped in the opposite direction. Someone had been reading. I closed the door quietly, leaned against it, and exhaled, a slow, steady breath. If they knew about the trust, that meant they understood the gravity of what they had lost. Good. On day 5, my neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, approached me while I was trimming the hedges. Marcus, honey, I just spoke to Kyra. She told me you're throwing them out with nowhere to go. She said they've been supporting you for months. I stared at her, the hedge trimmer humming softly in my hand. Supporting me? Mrs. Callahan's eyes softened, as if she were consoling a grieving man. I told her families have rough patches, but you all will work through it. I forced a small smile. Thank you for saying so. Inside, I was boiling. That night, I heard Derek and Kyra arguing upstairs, their voices muffled but sharp. He's not budging, Kyra snapped. Then push harder, Derek hissed. Cry more. Make him feel guilty. I opened my journal, wrote down every word, every attempt, every tactic. By day 7, the household chaos became more calculated. I woke to find my coffee maker smashed on the floor. Glass scattered like ice. Derek sat at the table, arms folded. It slipped, he said without looking up. I said nothing. Swept the glass. Bought a new machine that afternoon. That same night, I received a call from Ariana. Dad, we all think you're not well. Damien found a psychologist who can talk to you. She says sudden decisions like this are signs of mental strain. We can come tomorrow. Mental strain. A staged intervention. No, I said, and hung up. On day 9, things escalated. At 1:30 in the morning, my business security system pinged my phone. Motion detected at my main workshop. I sat upright in bed, heart thudding. I opened the feed. A shadow moved near the back door. The camera caught the shape of a car. A black sedan. Damien drove one. I called the police. They arrived too late to catch anyone, but the report was filed. Officers agreed the break-in attempt looked deliberate, targeted. I sat in my truck afterward, staring at the glowing screen, the adrenaline still burning in my veins. This was not just family drama anymore. It was strategy, desperation, and I would not bend. Day 12 brought Ariana to my doorstep. She stood there with red eyes, shoulders shaking in performative grief. Dad, Please. I'm your daughter. I made mistakes, but I can fix this. I'll leave Damien. I'll start fresh. Just don't do this to us. I let her finish, then asked one question. Are you returning the wedding money? She flinched, as if struck. That's complicated. No, Ariana, it's not. Her tears dried instantly. Her face hardened. Fine. Be alone. But don't expect anything from us ever again. I watched her walk away without responding. By day 13, the house was quieter. The manipulations had slowed. The whispers had grown shorter. Plans were collapsing. They were beginning to understand. The countdown was real. The eviction was real. The trust was real. And the man they believed they could control was gone. Day 30 arrived with a sky heavy and gray, the kind that promised a storm even when the forecast swore otherwise. I sat at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, listening to the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The charged kind that lives in the moments just before something irrevocable happens. At 9:45, a sheriff's vehicle rolled slowly into my driveway. Moments later, attorney Jared Colton parked right behind him. I met them at the front door. Morning, Mr. Ellington, Deputy Rowland said, adjusting his duty belt. You ready? I nodded. Yes. We stepped inside. Derek and Kira were at the kitchen table, mid-argument, surrounded by piles of unfolded clothes and empty takeout boxes. Neither had packed a single bag. They froze when they saw the uniforms. Derek stood abruptly, palms spread. Wait, what is this? You can't just barge in like this. Deputy Rowland's voice was firm, but calm. The 30-day eviction period has expired. At this point, your presence in this home is considered trespassing. You have 2 hours to collect personal belongings. Kyra shook her head violently. 2 hours? That's impossible. You've had a month, ma'am. Derek stepped forward, finger pointed at me. You're really doing this? To your own son? I did not respond. My silence enraged him more than words ever could. Kyra's breathing sharpened. This is abuse! You're abusing us! Jared stepped in calmly. Under Georgia law, you have no lease, no rental agreement, and no established tenancy. You have no legal claim here. I strongly suggest you begin packing. Kira burst into loud, theatrical sobs. Derek cursed under his breath and stomped upstairs. Within minutes, bags were being stuffed recklessly, drawers yanked open, clothes shoved into garbage bags. The storm finally broke outside. Thunder rumbled. Half an hour later, Ariana's name flashed across my phone. I answered. Dad, what are you doing? Derek just called me. You called the sheriff on your own children? Your brother and Kyra are trespassing. Today ends that. Her voice rose. You're sick. You're vindictive. And I'm coming over right now. No, you're not. You can't stop me. I hung up. Minutes later, her message pinged. You will regret this. Deputy Rowland paced the hall, checking his watch. You've got 90 minutes left, he announced. Upstairs, Derek slammed a door hard enough to rattle the light fixtures. Kyra shrieked something about family betrayal. I waited in the living room, arms crossed, watching the storm outside peel across the sky like a warning. Near the 1 hour mark, Derek charged downstairs, carrying a duffel bag. You're dead to me, he spat. I stayed silent. Kyra followed with swollen eyes and a glare sharp enough to cut. One day you're going to need us, and we won't be there, she hissed. I nodded once. I know. They dragged their bags outside to their car, their movements frantic, unsteady. Rain soaked their clothes as they loaded the trunk. Deputy Rowland supervised from the doorway. With 10 minutes left, they slammed the doors and peeled out of my driveway. No goodbye, no remorse, just fury and desperation. When their car disappeared, silence returned. A deeper, emptier silence. Deputy Rowland handed me the paperwork confirming completed removal. If they return without permission, call us immediately. Thank you. After the sheriff left, Jared placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the hardest part. Most people fold before it reaches this point. Maybe, I whispered, but it still hurts. He nodded. Betrayal always does. An hour later, my phone rang again. Ariana. I answered. Her voice was a razor. Dad, you destroyed us. You destroyed our family. Over what? Some stupid photos? You planned a divorce for money, I said quietly. Not stupid. She exhaled sharply. Damien and I are done. The wedding gifts are going to court. Lawyers are eating everything. Are you happy? I closed my eyes. No, Ariana. But I'm free. She scoffed. Don't expect me to come back. Ever. Then, she hung up. 2 days later, a text arrived from an unfamiliar number. Marcus, it's Damien. I know you know everything. Let's keep this quiet. I can send you 10 grand to forget the photos and stay out of our divorce. $10,000. To ignore the truth. To pretend the manipulation hadn't happened. I blocked the number. Later that week, I learned from a mutual acquaintance that the silver-haired woman had been Damien's partner long before Ariana ever met him. The two had run a similar scheme on another woman in Charlotte. That case was now being investigated. Ariana and Damien had not just made a mistake. They had executed a pattern, and this time, the fallout swallowed both of them whole. Back in my now silent home, I stood in the doorway where the sheriff had stood that morning. Rain still clung to the windows. The air smelled clean, washed, almost new. For the first time in years, my house felt like mine again. 3 weeks passed. Long enough for the dust to settle, but not long enough for the memories to stop drifting into my thoughts when the house became too quiet. Yet the quiet wasn't something I feared anymore. It was something I was learning to welcome, to breathe into, to inhabit. Every morning, sunlight pooled across my hardwood floors the way it used to years ago, before my children filled every corner of this house with noise and need. I stood on my back deck each day, coffee warming my hands, and watched the city wake in the distance. Atlanta looked different now. Not physically, not in any way the eye could measure. But to me, it felt like something inside had unlocked a window I never realized I had boarded shut. No more screams from upstairs. No more demands in the kitchen. No more guilt pressed upon me like a weight across my chest. Only quiet. Only breathing. Only the hum of a life finally belonging to me. On the 22nd morning, I cleaned out the guest room where Derek and Kyra had stayed for 4 years. I opened windows and let in fresh air, letting the stale heaviness drift out into the backyard. I scrubbed baseboards, changed curtains, polished every inch of wood. By noon, the room looked redeemed, empty, but hopeful. I closed the door gently, the faint scent of lemon cleaner lingering behind me, and realized something simple, something profound. An empty room was not a loss. It was space. Space for what I chose next. That afternoon, I drove to one of my workshops and stayed longer than I had in months. My employees seemed relieved to see me laugh again, joke again, talk with warmth instead of worry. I walked the floor, touching finished tables, running my fingers over handcrafted edges. I had built this place with calloused hands and stubborn hope. I had forgotten how proud it made me. Near closing time, I found a hand-carved guitar stand tucked in the corner. One of my craftsmen had made it weeks earlier. He'd told me, "Maybe it's time you learned to play. You work too much." I brought it home. Later that night, I sat with my old acoustic guitar dusty, neglected, and began practicing simple chords from an online lesson. I was bad, truly bad. But there was something wonderful about learning again, fumbling again, being imperfect for no one's judgment but my own. Every wrong chord still belonged to me. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough. On Friday, I drove to the Eastview Community Center and signed up as a volunteer handyman. They needed someone who could fix cabinets, repair steps, mend broken shelves. I had spent decades building furniture that sold for thousands of dollars. Now I was tightening screws on a daycare toy chest, smiling as little kids clapped and thanked me like I'd repaired the whole world. Maybe, in a small way, I had. The staff insisted I stay for lunch. I sat with elderly neighbors who told me stories about the city before it became the city I knew. One woman said, "You look lighter than most people who walk in here." And I realized I was. That evening, as I sat on my back patio watching the sun dip behind the trees, my phone buzzed. A number I recognized but hadn't seen since the day everything fell apart. Lillian Shore. I answered immediately. "Mr. Ellington?" Her voice carried warmth and something like caution. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "Not at all," I said. "I've been meaning to check in." I wasn't sure if I should call, she continued. I've thought about that day in my studio so many times. I keep hoping I didn't break something that wasn't mine to break. You didn't break anything, Lillian. You just showed me what was already broken. There was a quiet moment on the line, the kind that feels like someone nodding even when you can't see them. I'm glad, she said. Truly. I wanted to make sure you were all right. I looked out across my backyard, the trees glowing gold in the evening light. For the first time in months, the peace wasn't forced. It wasn't fragile. It simply was. I'm better than all right, I told her. And thank you again for your honesty, for your courage. She hesitated, then asked gently, would you like to get coffee sometime? I'd like to talk, not as a photographer and client, just as two people. A smile tugged at my lips. I'd like that. We settled on Tuesday. A simple plan. A quiet one. The kind that feels like a door opening rather than closing. After the call, I stayed on the patio until night folded over the city. The cicadas hummed rhythmically. A warm summer wind lifted the leaves. The world felt closer somehow, softer, more forgiving. Then, unexpectedly, a thought came. One that didn't sting the way it once did. I wondered what Derek and Kyra were doing. Whether they had stable jobs. Whether they were learning to stand on their own feet. Whether Derek ever thought about the day he called me dead to him. But the thought drifted away quickly, like smoke fading from a blown-out candle. I didn't hold on to it. A different thought came next. Ariana. She hadn't called since the day she screamed that I had ruined the family. Not a text, not a word. I learned through a friend that her divorce had finalized. Most of the wedding money had gone to legal fees. Damien's other scheme in Charlotte was now under investigation, and Ariana's name had been attached to the inquiry briefly, though she claimed she had been manipulated. I hope she found her way. I hope she learned something from the wreckage, but I did not feel responsible for saving her from it anymore. As the stars began to appear faintly above me, the last part of the truth became clear. The part I had avoided, acknowledging. I had not destroyed my family. I had simply stopped allowing them to destroy me. A weight lifted, not with drama, but with quiet acceptance. I finished my coffee, stood, and walked inside. The house greeted me with a stillness that no longer felt empty. It felt earned. It felt protective. It felt like home. Before bed, I picked up the guitar again. My fingers stumbled, my chords buzzed, but the sound raw, imperfect, and mine filled the room gently. As I set the guitar down, I realized a final truth. Peace isn't something you inherit. Peace is something you choose. And you protect it the way you protect your home, your work, your heart, by refusing to be exploited, by saying no when no is needed, by understanding that boundaries are not walls, they are the doors that keep your life from being stolen piece by piece. That night, I fell asleep easily, deeply, fully. For the first time in years, the silence did not feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. And freedom, I learned, is the greatest inheritance a man can ever give himself.